Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most recognized, most important, and, let's be honest, most criticized organizations on the planet, the United Nations. So, is it still living up to that grand vision from all those years ago, or has it, lost its way?
You hear this all the time, right? That the UN is basically just a very expensive talking shop, a place where world leaders give grand speeches, but nothing really gets done while crises rage on. A lot of talk, not a lot of action. But then you hear a quote like this from one of the UN's early leaders, and it just flips the script completely. It suggests the whole point isn't to build a perfect world, but to stop us from falling into the absolute worst one. It's a backstop, a safety net to save us from total disaster.
Okay, so to really get what the UN is all about today, we've got to rewind. Go all the way back to its origins, a moment when the world was literally in ruins and everyone was desperate to make sure it never, ever happened again.
You see, the UN didn't just appear out of thin air. It was born from the spectacular failure of the organization that came before it, the League of Nations, which obviously couldn't stop World War II. This whole process was a very careful, deliberate plan by the major powers, and it all led to one single, massive goal.
So the mission was basically twofold. Number one, create a place where countries could talk out their problems before they started shooting at each other again. And number two, help nations work together on things like poverty and economic development, because they knew that's where so many conflicts get their start.
And right at the heart of this new system, they created this incredibly powerful little club, the UN Security Council. And it would have just 5 permanent members. These 5, the US, the Soviet Union, the UK, France, and China, were the big winners of World War II. And they gave themselves a special power, a tool that has been controversial from day one, the veto. Now, think about what this means. Any one of these 5 countries can bring the entire Security Council to a grinding halt with a single no vote. It was a trade-off, really. A practical decision to make sure the world's most powerful nations actually stayed in the UN and participated. But by doing that, they basically hardwired a massive power imbalance into the UN's DNA from the very beginning. So, that was the plan back in 1945. But how is that old system holding up today? Well, the world it was built for, it looks almost nothing like the world we live in now. I mean, just look at this. The UN started with 51 members, now it's got 193. The old Cold War world with 2 superpowers is long gone. And the problems we're dealing with now, climate change, global pandemics, these are things the founders just couldn't have imagined.
And when you drill down into those changes, it's pretty staggering. The Soviet Union, gone. The US became the top dog. And now you've got China rising like a rocket, India too, and a whole host of Asian economies just booming. The entire map of global power has been redrawn, which leads to a really big question. Shouldn't the UN change with it?
And all of this, it leads us right to the heart of the debate today. The huge fight over who should really hold the power inside the UN's most important room, the Security Council.
For years and years, countries have been making the same arguments. They say the Council is a fossil from 1945, that it's dominated by Western interests, and that entire continents, like Africa and Latin America, don't have a single permanent voice. The feeling is, it just doesn't look like the world it's supposed to represent.
So, okay, if we're going to add new members, what's the test? What are the criteria? Should it be about who has the biggest economy, the strongest military, who pays the most into the UN budget? Or maybe it should be about population size, or a country's record on human rights. And this, right here, is the big, messy problem. Because while pretty much everyone agrees the system needs an update, nobody can agree on how to do it. Every single country looks at that list of criteria and picks the ones that benefit them the most. Getting everyone to agree is, well, it's basically impossible.
Let's take India's bid for a permanent seat. It's a perfect case study of just how complicated this all gets. On one hand, the arguments for are huge. It's the world's biggest democracy, massive population, booming economy. But then you look at the arguments against, and you see the political minefield, concerns over nuclear weapons, tensions with Pakistan, and the fact that if India gets a seat, then what about Brazil, or Germany, or Japan? It's a huge can of worms.
Okay, so with all these issues, all this baggage, what is the UN's actual job today? Especially when you have one country, the US, that's so powerful. Is the UN even relevant anymore?
Yeah, let's just be real for a second. The UN is not some kind of perfect counterbalance to American power. It just can't be. Between the money the US contributes, its veto, and the fact that the UN headquarters is literally in New York City, US influence is on another level.
But this actually brings us back to that whole talking shop criticism. You know, Churchill had that great line, "Jaw, jaw is better than war, war." And that's exactly what the UN is. It's the only place on the entire planet where all 193 countries can get in a room and talk, argue, and negotiate.
And that is its most vital role today. It's the one place where compromises can be hammered out, where deals can be made, and where countries can work together on problems that are just too big for any single nation to handle alone, no matter how powerful it is.
So when you boil it all down, for the really big stuff, the global problems like pandemics or climate change, the UN provides the framework. It's the machinery that helps us identify the issues, come up with ideas, and create the rules of the road so we can actually solve them together.
So yeah, we're back where we started. The UN is messy. It's flawed. It's full of frustrating politics. But it really makes you think about that quote from the beginning. If it didn't exist, if we didn't have this one imperfect place to talk, what exactly would save us from hell?